Welcome everyone to Second Saturday Tarot. Really happy to be with you as always. I get such a huge thrill out of this and out of you and out of this class. It's just over the top. I can't even tell you. So today we're going to talk about the veil being thin because of the time of year we're in. Right now it's October, and October is the month where we start the descent really gets greater. I'll put it that way, the descent into the darkness, and then come all of the spirits rising out of the dark. So that's what this is about today, and we will just move through that and see what happens. And today we're going back 500 years to the beginning of Tarot, which began to capture these spirits as they emerge, the archetypal energies of our consciousness. We'll put it that way. Here we go. The veil is thin. 500 years of Tarot. All right, let's time travel with Tarot, and that's what we're going to do today. So the Chariot is the time traveler through the veil and back to the ancestors. So here we go. The veil's thin, the ancestors come through, and we also go through. So this is in honor of the season. So now we have coming up Halloween, All Souls Day, and Day of the Dead. I wanted to start with a tale, Mary Queen of Scotland, because Mary Queen of Scots was said to be, by my grandmother, was said to be my grandmother, Mary Queen of Scots. Okay, so she insisted on it. This is Mary Stuart. My grandmother was Levantia Stewart, and she always told me, now don't you forget it, don't you forget it, you're descended from Mary Queen of Scots. And she told my mother this too. Okay, so that was the story. That's the story. And back in her line, okay, well, you know, I'm really a genealogy fanatic, and I'm going to tell you, I can't find my direct line to Mary Queen of Scots. And I wonder how many people, you know, how do we know how, okay, is it legend, is it myth, is it true? But for right now, I'm going to go with it's true, because I almost found it. I have one link missing, only one generation missing. So it comes back in time, it goes, you know, forward in time, whatever, and there's one generation missing. So maybe I'm descendant, maybe I'm not. But as I was researching Mary Queen of Scots over many, many years, I'm talking about, I've been researching her for 40 years at least. And so a story began to emerge, and I wondered about how I was connected with her story, or if any of this is inside of us or whatever. So Mary Queen of Scots, even if I'm not descended from her, what happened to her impacted all of our lives. And I think you'll see why. So she became the Queen of Scotland in 1542, 6 days after she was born. And this kind of thing happened a lot in the Middle Ages. Then her son, King James the sixth and first, because he was King James the sixth of Scotland and King James the first of England. So he was going to succeed her. That would happen. Her mother, Mary of Guise, was the Queen Regent of Scotland, and she was French. So what was going on is they had all these alliances, the French, the Scottish, the English, the Italians, and they would marry the royalty. So at age 5, Mary was betrothed to the Dauphin of France, and so he was going to be the next king, Francis II. And this was a move to further unite France and Scotland. So there were always these political alliances going on. Mary, Francis was 3 years old, and Mary was 5 at the time. And when they were betrothed, she was sent to France to be raised in the French court. And the reason for that was they wanted her to speak French, they wanted her to know French politics, and it was going to secure this alliance, and it was going to protect her from warring that was ramping up between Scotland and England. I'm not going to go any more into this right now, but they called it the rough wooing that was happening between England and Scotland. So this has been going on for a long time. Okay, so now I'm going to show you these images from it's called the Visconti Sforza Tarot. And this is a collection of cards from 15th century tarot decks, it is said. Okay, so here we go. So this I am imagining is Mary, and looking at the picture, so this is Mary, Queen of Scots. She was already the queen. She goes to France, and then above her is the would-be French king. He'll be the next French king, Francis. Okay, so where is this going to fall? So this is a tarot card called Justice. How will it come about? What will happen? Okay, now here we are, the French court. So the French Renaissance court with King Henry II. These are Francis's parents, and Catherine de Medici, and she was from Italy. So this was a French-Italian alliance that was being made, and the dates on this 1519 to 1559, 1519 to 1589. Okay, this is important for tarot. That's why I'm bringing this in. It has to do with tarot. So Mary's raised in the French court, and then Henry and Catherine would be her mother and father-in-law, but since she was a little kid, she was 5 years old, it was basically like her mother and father. So Catherine de Medici was her mother, essentially. So in the court, there were many archetypes that Mary experienced. And now these tarot cards are cards of the day. These are the first tarot decks that emerged, and those tarot decks showed the players, and they were mainly the players in the court. So there were monarchs, and so right now, well, first I should say the ones that we're looking at on the screen is we're looking at the Hermit, if you can recognize the Hermit on the left, Father Time, and then on the right we have Strength. So these were the early interpretations. These are like strength, force, and that's actually a lion being beaten, strength. And so the lion's going to represent probably a country, with a symbol, a standard of a lion. Okay, we're going to smash the lion, or the lion's the king of beasts. Okay, so there are monarchs. And so how does that come down in tarot? It gets passed down as the empress and the emperor, and also the queens and the kings of tarot. Then there are bards, artists, architects. So that's the fool and the magus, and then how they apply their trades. There are philosophers, seers, and religious leaders. So this is the priestess, the hierophant, the hermit, Father Time, also called Father Time. And then there's the master of the horse, hunting and jousting, that's the chariot, military leaders, strength, and then lovers. Lovers were a big part of the court. The lover, who are the lovers? Because you have the king and the queen, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily together. Everyone's got a lot of lovers, that's a big part of the court. Okay, so the prognosticator of the French court was Nostradamus. So 1503 to 1566. So he was the French astrologer, apothecary, physician, and seer. And Catherine de Medici was, I said, one of his foremost supporters. She was his biggest supporter. And so Nostradamus was always at court. He was the most widely read seer of the Renaissance. He was a prophet and advisor of Catherine de' Medici. He did horoscopes for Mary and Francis and all the other children. He was very much into astrology. He was the predictor. He knew what was going to happen. Everybody turned to him. Mary was educated either by him or by Catherine de' Medici under him. So he had the sight. Nostradamus had the sight. He could see who was going to rise, who was going to fall. And Mary was developing the sight at court along with all the other kids. All of them were being trained in developing the sight and their intuition along with other things. Okay, so here's the Lover's card. And here is Mary, Queen of Scotland, and Francis, King of France, the lovers. So the child queen, they called her the child queen of Scotland, and the next King of France were betrothed, as I mentioned, at ages 5 and 3. And these two fell in love. They fell in love when they were little kids, and they loved each other with all their hearts. That's the story that is told. All through their lives. It was a surprise love. But so here comes Cupid. So here, this is the Lover's card. And Cupid, at the top of the card, love is blind. How is this going to unfold? And this alliance between France and Italy. So this card, the Lover's card, represents love, but it also represents alliance. How is the alliance going to come forward? Okay. So the children of the court were schooled in leadership, whatever that meant in the moment, languages. They all spoke many languages. Mary spoke about 5 different languages. This is necessary for leadership positions. They're educated in culture, and then also, because not necessarily at the top of the list, but for our purposes, they were schooled in the arts of seeing, astrology, tarot, prediction. They needed to know this as leaders. They played with the archetypes and they played with the wheel of life. This went from child games all the way through all the way up to the top of the monarchy, leading countries with this information. So how would the wheel spin? Where would it stop? And then again, Catherine de' Medici, who was schooled by Nostradamus, was their major teacher at court. In 1558, Francis was coronated as the King of France. Mary and Francis were married with a hand-fasting ceremony. And she was 15, he was 13 now at this time. And in 1558, the same year, a tarot deck was created to honor the members and archetypes of the French court, featuring Mary and Francis. And the cards were asking what would be the fate, the future, and the destiny of France. But every country had tarot cards. What would be the fate, the future, and the destiny of Italy, or of the Visconti family, or of the Sforza family? Because this is where these old cards come from. So there was a French tarot that was created that was lost. And I raised the question, was it lost? Because I am looking at these cards, which these are the oldest cards that exist, and they're from the Visconti family collection, it is said, which is an Italian family. And this looks very much like Mary and Francis. And the story that's told through the tarot looks very much like their story to me. And unfortunately, there's nobody, it's been researched as far as it can go. So it said, so there's nobody around to verify, could this really be Mary and Francis? Okay, and so the next question is it that these archetypes are so universal that they would also fit for an Italian family trying to gain power a Scottish family. These are families. Or a French family trying to gain power. Would all these archetypes work? Okay, so, but here we have these two figures as the lovers in Love is Blind. And it turns out Mary was 5'11". She was really tall, like me. I'm very tall too, right? So she's 5'11". Francis was really short. He was like 5'6" or something like that, and 2 years younger than her. Well, look at this card. I'm saying, that's interesting. And she's even slumping. She's slumping in this card. I recognize that. I've slumped. I get that. Okay. And also the Stuart colors were yellow and red. Okay, so that's the Scottish colors. So the male figure is wearing the Scottish colors, but by marrying her, he's going to become the King of Scotland as well. So Scotland and France. Okay, so this is just a side note. They had an Italian-style wedding at the Notre Dame Cathedral, and it was celebrated with masked music, and that means everybody's in masks and they're dancing and singing, and masking was the entertainment of the day. Okay, so this is important because it also has something to do with tarot. Okay, so here is the Justice card, which is the Karma card in Tarot of the Spirit. The children of the court, the story continues. How will their story play out? So now they're married. Will Mary be a good leader for the people? So this is Queen of Staves, Queen of Wand, Fire Mother, Queen of Wands and Fire Mother. So how will she emerge on the world stage as a leader? That's the question. And that was the original question of Fire Mother. So you see, these archetypes were real people. I already made this point. I think they're real people. And what happened in our day is that they moved more into abstract archetypal energies. But those abstract archetypal energies were contained in these real people. Okay, Queen of Swords, Wind Mother. Will she be a wise queen? And will she be equipped for battle? She needed to know those things as the queen. And she, Mary herself, longed to be the archetype of the perfect queen. So in other words, these people, they saw these archetypes, they had them in the tarot cards. They were playing with the tarot cards in court. The kids were raised on tarot cards. Okay, and they saw these tarot cards and they wanted to be that queen. So they strove to enter inside that archetype and be that archetype. They lived it. The wheel turns. This was a thing everybody knew. Fate is cast. Will France rise or fall? And what will happen? And so you see, this really has a general meaning because I'm not even positive this is about France, but it certainly fits the French story. Even though it is presented to us now, you can buy these cards. It's called Visconti Sborsa Tarot, and it's presented to us as the tarot decks of two Italian families. It's actually at least three different artists, 3 different times, 3 different tarot decks that are all put together. And I'm thinking, and I would like to put my challenge out into the field here, that this is actually the French court, and that some of these may be existing cards from that French deck, because it certainly looks like it. Okay, so what will happen to Mary? What will happen to Francis? And this is like Francis going around and around, up and down. They know that the alliances are going to change. Okay, and so they can draw cards and they can look at what to do, how to govern, how to make this work. So they're working with the tarot. In 1560, so they were married in 1558. In 1560, the tower fell in every way. France got expelled by Italy. They had been part of the alliance. They got expelled by Italy. The French withdrew from Scotland. They had been allies. The French withdrew from Scotland and ended the alliance between France and Scotland. And then Mary, Queen of Scots' mother, dies in Scotland. Then Francis dies from an ear infection. So he's 16 years old. Mary is 18. Europe blew up. The alliances started shifting. So the lovers, I said here, played their cards until they were dealt a new hand. Well, I mean, unfortunately, Frances died, but what was Mary going to do now? She was in exile. She flees back to Scotland, greatly grieving because she loved Frances so much. But she did have dreams. She was still the Queen of Scotland. So Scotland had been governed by regents, but she still had the dream of a marvelous queenship in the land of her birth. So here we go. But she's going to step into even more horrific events. But in the card, I just wanted to point out, if you look really closely, you can see she's holding the orb and the scepter, which are traditional symbols of coronation in Britain right now, still. So what would happen? Would she be able to join to create this British alliance? Or were the symbols of coronation, the orb, which means God-given power, and the scepter, governing power, were those symbols used throughout Europe as symbols of power? But they're the ancient symbols of coronation. Okay, and we saw that in, I'm not going to go into that, but if you watch anything about England, you'll see that. Okay, so Mary and Frances, what were they born into? What did they become? How did they play their hand? And then at this time, social mobility was largely determined by outer forces. So now, theoretically, we have more social mobility. But here are the lovers again with Cupid on the left. Then on the right, we see a card that was added later, but is still now part of the deck. And it's part of the Visconti Sforza Tarot deck, the Devil, because we see Frances again, and Mary's on the right. She's blocked, unfortunately, by the Zoom, but she's on the right. They're chained apart and they're held, and this is because they didn't have a lot of control over their fate. Okay, so part of the teaching of the Devil is how do we learn to control our fate? But I thought you'd be interested in these cards because you'd see the similarity of the cards today. And these cards, these are 500, just almost 500 years old, or some of them are older because this is a collection. Okay. So one way to play the game of life they learned is through masking, and we learn that too. Change your archetype, hide, become somebody else, change your identity. Things aren't necessarily as they seem. Who will you be and how will you be it? You can choose your archetype at will. The queen becomes a boy. And Mary did this all the time. She shapeshifted, she became a boy, and she was free. So when she was a boy, she could walk out. So this is after she gets back to Scotland, to Edinburgh. When she became male, she could walk about the streets and see what was actually going on. Now, if she had remained in the queen archetype, she wouldn't be able to do that. So she was constantly disappearing out into the streets in her male attire. And generally, too, when she traveled, like that picture of her fleeing in the chariot, that was a chariot card. I didn't mention that, but that picture of her fleeing in the chariot wouldn't really be the way it would be when she flees. Okay, when she flees, she would be dressed as a man or as a boy. She would be on horseback, but she would be in disguise, complete disguise. Okay, so they're learning also the art of disguise from the archetypes. Okay, at will, the prince becomes a pauper. So the wheel isn't just about rising into princehood and falling into pauperhood. We know those stories, but it's about willfully changing your identity so that you become something else. And with the disguise, then you can move about. Whereas if you're stuck in your archetype you can't. The archetype that you were maybe born to or whatever, you may not be able to move. So this is like take another identity, take a different identity and move forward. The wheel of fortune turns, shape-shifting destiny, queen or peasant, prince or pauper, visible or invisible. So the tarot deck taught them about archetypes, and it taught them how to understand themselves, how to understand others, and also how to take on different archetypes if they wanted to move. This idea of the wheel goes way, way back, and it's cross-cultural, Eastern, Western, and indigenous. Humans have always recognized that the wheel never stops turning. We'll rise in one moment, we'll fall in the next, or we'll be born into different archetypes. And then how are we going to work with that archetype, those archetypes with the wheel? What's your destiny? So again, cross-cultural, this is Eastern, in that your destiny will change. So we have the Western, we have the Eastern versions of the wheels. Okay, and then archetype. So what does it mean? It just means archetype. And the archetype is an original pattern or model from which all things of the same type are representations or copies. For example, there's the archetype of the queen in the tarot deck. The queen, the fool, the magician, the hermit, and these all come out of that court life. So, and that's why, by the way, that's why we have, they're called court cards, because they were the court cards. They represented the court. So archetype also means an inherited idea or mode of thought, as in the psychology of C.G. Jung, that is derived from the experience of the species and is present in the unconscious of the individual. So what Jung is saying is we're walking around as humans with all these archetypes in our consciousness or our subconscious. And those archetypes emerge out of us, and they emerge into our society and become our society. And so I was thinking, what if these archetypes are present in my unconscious? Because what if Mary really was my grandmother? So, and my grandmother, Leventia Stewart, insisted she was. But so is there anything in my DNA where I actually have these memories? Like, was I in the court reading the cards or something? Why was I even interested in tarot cards? Great mystery. And plus, I mean, I'm not quite as tall as she was, but, well, maybe I would be in shoes. So maybe when they measured her height, she was wearing some, pretty good size shoes. I don't know. But anyway, I resonated when I found out how tall she was. I thought, uh-oh, because they always said when I was a kid, well, she got the tall genes. They're talking about me, long, tall Sally over there. Okay. So I'm researching Mary, Queen of Scots and all of this. I'm diving into the tarot. I did not know yet. 1982, I did not know yet that Mary, Queen of Scots, and all of these people from all the courts of Europe were working with tarot cards. That I had not discovered yet. But I got very interested in tarot because of this long story about this woman accosting me and telling me I was going to create a tarot deck, which came out of the blue. I wrote about that in the introduction to Tarot of the Spirit. But I went to the library because that was my MO, go to the library. And here was this book that was on the shelf by Joseph Campbell. Well, I already knew about Joseph Campbell. I studied him in college. The Hero's Journey, Myths to Live By. So the book was called Tarot Revelations. And it was written by Joseph Campbell and Richard Roberts. So they were talking about archetypes and these ancient archetypes. And this is 1982. Joseph Campbell says, we have come to revelations of a grandiose poetic vision of universal man. This is through the tarot. We have come to revelations of a grandiose poetic vision of universal man that has been for centuries the inspiration of saints and sinners, sages and fools in kaleidoscopic transformations. That's the tarot via Joseph Campbell. and then his partner, Richard Roberts. In the 22 cards comprising the major arcana, we have a genuine document of the soul's initiation into higher consciousness. As such, the major arcana may be interpreted as the Western Book of the Dead. Okay, and so there's a whole lot more about that too, because the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and this is a huge lecture for another time, but the Egyptian Book of the Dead moves through 22 layers of knowing, and it's done in archetypes, archetypal knowledge, and the archetypes are the gods and goddesses. So it is said, Egyptian gods and goddesses. There's a zero, there's the zero is the one who passes through, and then there are 21 pylons, they're called, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So I don't want to get too far into that right now. But then it comes all the way down and emerges in these courts, in the monarchy, in these various courts in the mid 1500s and before that, because this was happening before that. So maybe for 100 years before that. So it's emerging, and then they say based on the Egyptian archetypes. So it goes back. Okay, so then I just threw up the hero's journey there for Joseph Campbell. We don't need to go through it, but what they were talking about is you could go through these 21 cards of the major arcana in the tarot, and the major arcana existed in those courts, in those tarot decks. It was the same decks. And you could walk through those major arcana cards, and that would be the hero's journey. And you would emerge knowing something about yourself. So you'd be the fool walking through the hero's journey. Okay. So I'm getting into this. So this is after this woman said this mysterious woman said I would be creating a tarot deck. So I check out this Tarot Revelations from the library, and I see 78 possibilities, where before I saw 2. Before it was this or that. You have to be this or that. Not you can be any of this, or you can go through this transformation of the soul by looking at these cards. Okay, so now I'm seeing a deeper way into self, and I'm seeing this 10-step sequence of developmental action and stages for the individual as well as for society. So this was like developmental stages right in front of me. And I had a pretty good education to be able to receive this, since I had studied developmental processes from a sociological and psychological point of view. And so you can actually see the development moving through the tarot deck. And so I'm drawing cards. I'm asking, what is my fate? What is my destiny? Does luck have anything to do with it? Or how can we change our fate? And then what is my own hero's journey? So I have this book called Tarot Revelations, and lo and behold, out of the middle of the book, this tarot card flies out of the middle of the book, and it's the Waite Tarot Wheel of Fortune, the card on the left. And I'm like, oh no, I never thought it was my fate. I went into this big thing. Should I take it back to the library, the card? Because my first thought was somebody's missing someone put it in for a bookmark or whatever. That's my first thought. And they forgot about it. And they left it in the book. They took it back to the library. I check out the book, and the card flies out. And I felt like I was like this little kid. Like once when I was 5 years old, I found a nickel in the sandbox at the school. And I was such a good kid, I turned it in. I did. I turned it in. Someone lost their milk money. So I take it to the office. I turn it in, because in my mind, if you turn it in and nobody claims it, this is me at 5 years old. If nobody claims it, you can pick it up later. And I did go back to the library, by the way, and I asked if anyone claimed the nickel I turned in. And nobody knew anything about it. And I was so sad. that they had not kept track of my nickel. Anyway, okay, so my big dilemma was, should I return the card to the library? And I went through this agony about it because I was afraid that if I took the card back to the library, they were going to identify me as a person who had checked out that book. And I live in a small town, right? I did live in Half Moon Bay, small town then. And I thought they would point the finger at me and say, ooh, she's doing this thing that is dangerous and weird. And that I would be like ostracized or something. There was a lot of negative judgment around tarot in 1982. And I'm going to tell you where that came from in a minute. Okay, but I kept the card because I wasn't going to get the finger pointed at me, I decided. So I kept the card. And then my fate was cast. I was in the wheel. I was inside the wheel of tarot, never to come out again. So then the next thing that happened was I had to find my birth card. I was reading every book I could find, all the history. I did wind up joining 3 Western mystery schools, which are based inside tarot. But so I wanted to find my birth card. So this is how you find it if you don't know. So what is the card you're born into? So this is my true birthday. I was debating about whether to post it or just see. The honesty of me is going to probably be my undoing one day. So should I post it on the internet? Well, anyway, here it is. Okay, so March 12th, 1953 is my actual birthday. So then you take your numbers, 3 plus 12 plus 1953. And as I was doing this, I saw it added up to 1968. I saw it again. I'm like, 1968? Oh my God, that was the year my whole life changed too. It was 1968. So that's another issue. But there we go. And then you take your 1968, so you take your birth date, then you add it across the bottom, 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 8, which equals 24. Then you add it again, 2 plus 4 equals 6, and 6 is the Lovers. And so that is the tarot card which I entered into, as they say, on my birthday. Okay, so the Lovers, that's all about separation, alliances, and actually being a lover. So you are going to have, in the end, you're going to reduce it. They call it 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 8 equals 24. So you keep reducing it down. 2 plus 4 is 6. So you will have 1 or 2, or in one case, you'll have 3 different cards. It may not be just one. Okay, I'm not going to go into that right now because I think a lot of you already know this, but I wanted to repeat it because this has to do with archetypes, and then it goes into what are you born into. Then you can add in your other birth cards from the tarot calendar. So on this calendar, and this is in Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, my book, so you find your birth date, so you find out where, you look at it, and you find where is March 12th, and like March 12th is on the left side of that wheel, and so it's between March 11th and 20th, so you see it's Pisces, it's the sun sign of Pisces, then the card, it's related to the card 10 of water. You have to look at the code here, the legend on the bottom of the screen to see what card it is, but it's 10 of water. Then it goes out to Fire Mother, which is still in the dimension, then Earth Sister, 1 of Earth, or I'm sorry, Wind Sister. Okay, it goes out to, I'm sorry, you got on the wrong line there. So it goes Pisces, I'm looking at the screen, Pisces, 10 of water, and then March 11th to 20th, Fire Mother, Wind Sister, and 1 of Wind. So those are my cards right there. That's my set of cards. So all of you, any of you, you look at this chart and you find your set of cards. So this is the hand you're dealt, as they say. Okay, what are you going to do with it? So the hand that I'm dealt is Pisces, 10 of water, Fire Mother, Wind Sister, One of Wind. I'm not going to interpret those cards right now, but you look at your own. This is so you can find your own. And then you can interpret those cards. So here's the hand I was dealt. So no when to hold them, no when to fold them, no when to walk away, no when to run. Okay, so this is what you're working with your hand. And I kept a lot of these in a certain sense. I mean, a lot of them are my life. When I look at these cards, I think, oh, they could not have been better in terms of who I really am. And I didn't know anything about these cards until I was pretty far along in my life. But so this is the hand I'm dealt. Okay, so then you're working with this theoretically, and you can change it if you want. Okay, but now there's another level, prevailing conditions. So we ask, where are we seasonally? That's where I began. Where are we now in the season? So it's in autumn, or in autumn, it's growing darker. And as it grows darker, the veil between the worlds grows thinner. And then astrologically, we're headed into a water trine. And the water trine is, I'm not going to describe all of it, but those of you who are into astrology, you can look at this. So we're headed into this water trine October 23rd when we enter into Scorpio, October 23rd. So Scorpio is the sign of death and darkness and the depths of all of it. So that's where we're headed right now. But this isn't like a completely settled water trine, because it's got some, there's some difficulty inherent in this particular configuration, but it is a water trine. Okay, so what does that mean? So I'm calling it uneasy water, because water is about psychic energies abounding. So Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, those are the three water signs. And then Mem, the word Mem, which represents the hanged man, primal water. Mem is primal water. Mem is the memory of all that has been, all that is, and all that shall become. All of that, they say, is contained in water. The memory of everything is actually in the emotions, in the heart, in the feelings, in the intuition, in the psychic knowledge. So in this particular water trine, all these planets are in water signs. The sun, the moon, Mars, Mercury, Saturn, and Uranus. So the sun's in Scorpio, which means focus on death and transformation. And the card that represents the sun in Scorpio is the Six of Water, faith. So if you look at the card, Six of Water, you're going to see the sun and Scorpio on that card. So this is this focus on death and transformation that comes through. So this is all starting October 23rd, which we're coming up to. Okay, then we have Mercury in Scorpio, and that's about mental processes, where we're considering death and the mystery. That's astrologically. There's not a card that represents that per se. Then we have the moon in Cancer, psychic energies opening, and that's the Four of Water, the flood, where the psyche opens hugely. It's not quite stable. There's a lot that can happen there when the psychic energies open like that. And then Mars in Cancer. Okay, this is really uneasy, because Mars is the male energy that wants to push out and push back, where most of this is receptive. So wants to create protection in the psychic realm. So this is all up as of October 23rd. And then Saturn in Pisces, okay, trying to find form in the formless. That's the Eight of Water, still waters. Something is happening, something is planted, but we can't see it yet. It's not emerged yet. So if you have knowledge of these cards, you're going to be able to follow this. Okay, this might be a lot if you don't have deep knowledge. Uranus and Pisces, expect the unexpected. So in this time frame, new energies will emerge. And the idea that emerges within us is I will seek, I will transform. So it's a huge transformational period, archetypal transformation coming in the time when the darkness is abounding and we are moving through the unknown. And this very much reflects what's happening in our world right now. So astrological water, and this is what we're talking about. When we move into this astrological water, the veil between the worlds grows very thin. So the season of descent, that means into darkness. Darkness is upon us. And when we come into this time frame, it's time to travel in time and space to receive the energies there and to shapeshift. Therefore, Halloween, right, is our big shape-shifting moment, and Day of the Dead, when the ancestors come through the veil. Now is the time to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. That's the Magus. Okay, what is the power of the Magus? To imagine and to bring in. So to know, to will, to dare, and then to keep silent doesn't mean that you keep absolutely silent. It means that you only express what you want to express to whom you want to express it. So sometimes it is prudent to not say everything you know, to go ahead and will and dare, but not express it if somebody doesn't have a container to be able to receive what it is you're trying to share, which is the reason I did not take that card back to the library. I needed to keep silent about it. I still have the card. It's stuck inside Tarot of the Spirit, which I had no idea in that moment I would be writing. Okay, so the portals are open on the Tree of Life. Okay, here we go now. So let's pass through those portals like the ancient ones before us, which is what we're going to do today. We are going to move through those portals. And to move through those portals, we're going to we're going to move through and we're going to allow archetypes to speak to us. We're going to take this spirit journey. We're going to receive guidance. So the Fool moves through the wheel and we don't know who's going to come through for us. What kind of guides? These are the same questions they were asking in those courts in Europe. Who's going to come through? Who's going to rise? Who's going to come? Who's going to rise? Who's going to fall? Who's going to guide us? What were we born to? How will we play our hand? And what will we become? Okay, this is all, it's not necessarily a done deal. Okay, so here are the supplies you need for your journey right now. You need your Tarot of the Spirit deck. So get that out if you don't have it out. And you need your journal. So you can pause this recording at any time to go get things if you need them. Okay, because you may need to do that later. But so pull out your Tarot deck and your journal. Okay, and then we are going to use the doorways, the diamond doors that Judy Ann Morse educated us in last month. So you can find out so much more about this by listening to Judy Ann's presentation, Secret Paths and the Diamond Sun, which is on YouTube. Okay, so it's part of this series, Second Saturday Tarot. So it's also under Pamela Eakins, and look at Secret Paths and the Diamond Sun, and you're going to find Judy Ann's lecture. So you must listen to her lecture next. Anyway, if you haven't heard it yet, you need to listen to it for your next journey. Okay, but right now we're going to use the doorways that Judy Ann described. So there are 4 doors, and here on this slide what we see is doorway number 1 down at the bottom, and then 2, and these are in the black framed letters, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right up the middle pillar of the Tree of Life. So the first doorway is going to have something to do with astral travel. And that means astral travel is a term that's used, and it just means basically traveling in the field of the unconscious or the enveloping consciousness, or the enveloping cosmos, and traveling and encountering energies there. So it's called astral travel. And the second doorway is going to have something to do with ancestral knowledge. This is for our purposes today. Ancestral knowledge, the ancestors coming through. This has to do with the time of year. The third door has to do with mediumship. And mediumship would be your ability to call in guides and energies, or to receive these guides and energies for yourself and maybe for others. And then the fourth door has to do with making your offering into the cosmos. Okay, so these are 4 different portals. They're going to be 4 different quests for our purposes today. So today we are going to do we're going to go through one of these doors. So each one of us is going to go through one door. But what you can do is you can come back to this and you can go again, so to speak, and you can go through a different door. So you can gain all this knowledge through any of these 4 doors. But first, today we're going through one door. So here's how we're going to do it. So I want you to take out the 4 tarot cards from Tarot of the Spirit, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of wind. Okay, so we have the 1, 2, 3, and 4 of wind. So we take these cards. So I have them here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of wind. So you take these cards, and these 4 cards, and again, pause this. If you don't have your cards out, just pause it for a minute and get your cards. Okay, so you take these 4 cards and you mix them up, and put them down before you, in front of you, and then mix them up, and then pick one out. Draw one of these cards, okay? And you look at your card, and is this card the 1, 2, 3, or 4 of wind? Okay, so everybody mix up your cards. Is it the 1, 2, 3, or 4 of wind? So you take your card. Mine happens to be the 2 of wind. So what that means is right now I'm going to travel through doorway number 2. Okay, so find out what card that is, and you're going to be traveling through that door, either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Each of these portals will open a different aspect of self-knowledge. So dawn, these are the 4 cards: dawn, the crossing, recognition, and mastery. Okay, so I'm going to move through number 2, which has something to do with the ancestors. Very fitting, since I'm very involved with the ancestors today, as it turns out. So, but take the one that you're going through. So note that right now, what that is, and put that card in front of you, and note that card in your journal. So write down in your journal whatever it is, whichever card, and then whatever that doorway represents. So write that down in your journal. Okay, and then we're going to go on. Okay, so here again are the 4 doors on the tree of life. Doorway number 1 is about astral travel, and it's asking the question, who is my cosmic self? So if you have that number 1, astral travel, and that'd be the 1 of wind, which is dawn, new idea, write down in your journal, who is my cosmic self? Okay, so you find your question here. Vision of ancestor. So this is the one I drew. How can I heal the past? Wow, that's very perfect for what I'm doing right now. Okay, and then maybe you got number 3, vision of mediumship. Who or what spirit guide is with me? That's the 3 of wind card. And then the 4th one, vision of the future. That's the mastery card. What is my offering to the cosmos? Okay, so write down your question in your journal, and now you can put those wind cards, put them back in your deck so you have a full deck, and then mix your deck up, shuffle your deck, your whole deck, mix it up, and keep your question in mind, which you've written down now in your journal. So just shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. That I'm shuffling my cards. I'm with you guys. I'm doing this with you. Okay, we're traveling together, which is, I never do any of this just, to teach it or what. I'm always right there with you, doing it with you. Okay, so we choose. We're going to spread our deck, shuffle, 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 shuffle your deck, spread it out in front of you in whatever way you choose, and we're going to draw a card. So, and it might be one of those 4 wind cards, which is fine, whatever you get. So mix the cards up in whatever way you do it. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to cut my cards to get a card, but you can do it however you want. Okay, so now I'm getting a card. I'm not going to tell you guys what my card is. I might tell you after. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Okay, got my card. All right. So put that in front of you. Put your card in front of you. And what we're going to do is begin a spirit journey. Okay. So you have a question now. You have a guide card now. That's the card you just drew. You don't know how that guide card is going to impact your journey yet. But your journey is going to be involved with the question that you have written down. So you've got a question, you've got a guide, and now we're going to just see what happens. So here we go. Okay, so close your eyes and just listen, and here we go on the journey. So here's the spirit journey. Listen, 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 and you're seeking your vision as your cosmic self, that's number 1, your ancestor, that's number 2, or your spirit guide, number 3, or your offering to the cosmos. So know that you're journeying in one of those areas. Close your eyes and breathe. Just begin to breathe and breathe. Slowly, deep breaths, and begin to relax, relax, relax. Feel your heart relaxing. Feel your chest relaxing internally, your heart relaxing in your chest. And just feel a deep sense of relaxation begin to permeate that whole area of your chest and your heart and your lungs. Keep breathing, breathe deeply. And then imagine that that breath is a feeling of relaxation. Your very breath, your breath itself. Breathe and imagine that breath moving up out of your heart into your shoulders, relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your neck, moving into your head. Keep breathing deeply, relaxing your head, relaxing your face. Just feel your eyes relaxing, relaxing. Your mouth relaxing. Maybe your jaw just dropping open a little bit if it helps you to relax more deeply. Relaxing your cheeks. And even your hair relaxes, your scalp relaxes, and your brain relaxing, relaxing, relaxing. Just feel everything beginning to relax in your head. Relaxing, relaxing. And then back down your neck, breathing, breathing. Swallow if it makes you more relaxed. And then feel that relaxation back in your shoulders and your back, moving down your arms. Relax, relax, relax. Your arms become heavy and relaxed, and your fingers are relaxed. Everything relaxing, relaxing, and then back into your chest and your heart and your lungs. Breathing deeply, your solar plexus relaxing, relaxing, your abdomen relaxing, all the little muscles just relaxing and relaxing, and your hips relaxing, and down your legs, relaxing, relaxing, breathing and relaxing, breathing and relaxing. All the way down to your feet, your ankles, your feet, the tops of your feet, the bottoms of your feet, your toes, your whole body. Just relax, relax. Feel yourself in a state of relaxation from your toes all the way to the top of your head, all the way down to your toes. And feel yourself deepening, deepening into the state of relaxation. And I'm going to count from 5 to 1. And as I count from 5 to 1, you'll drop even deeper into your journey. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very deep in your journey now, very deep. And as you are deep in a state of relaxation, let the question you came into your journey with, let that question come back to you. Feel that question surfacing. You came through with a question. And now we are going to travel through time and space in search, on a quest, in search of something inside the mystery. Imagine yourself traveling through time and space, maybe past various scenes, various thoughts, various feelings, various ideas, maybe many visions if you are seeing visions, maybe audio if you are hearing something. Might be audio, might be visual, might be a voice, might be just knowing, just feeling, maybe feeling in your bones, just sensing. However you receive is the way you receive, and it's the right way to receive, the way you receive. And now we're asking for guidance. Let the guidance come. May the guidance come. You may know what the guidance is, or you may not know what the guidance is. Trust that you are guided. Trust that you're guided. And now, with this guidance, stop. Stop the traveling and stop on a scene. Some kind of a scene, a place, a time. Again, you will know this in your own way. You may see something visually. You may hear something. You may know something. You may intuit something. You will know in your own way. Stop in time and space and imagine that your guide is helping you stop in this particular place because there's something you need to know. What do you sense is happening here? What do you feel? What do you see? Or what do you hear? What is happening? Go deeper into the vision. And now, if you don't have a vision, you can pause the recording and just stay right here. But I'm going to move forward with the instructions. Imagine that your scene or your vision now moves forward into the future. Take your vision into its own future. What is the next scene that happens here? The next action? Let it go as far into the future as it needs to. Remember, you are guided. And then stop again. Stop again. What is being revealed to you now? Go deeper until you know what is being revealed to you now. Trust the way you receive. Now, still asking for guidance, answer the following questions. And here, if you are so moved, you can write down the answers. And we're going to write them briefly because we can go back and elaborate later. The first question is, what is being shown to you? So just take a moment and write down what is being shown, what you're seeing or hearing or perceiving in your own way. And then we'll bring that to a close and ask the next question. Asking for guidance, asking for guidance. What is the message coming through to you? What is the message coming through from this vision? Now we're going to bring that to a close. Just finish writing what you're writing. And then we have the third question. What is the teaching of this vision? What is the teaching? What's the teaching? Record this in your journal, asking for guidance all the while. What is the teaching? And bring that to a close. You can always come back to this later and write more, record more. Now we will begin to return to waking consciousness, full waking consciousness. So get ready to return to waking consciousness. Thank your guides for helping, and you can release your guides. Thank and release your guides. And I'm going to count from 1 to 5. And as I count from 1 to 5, just feel yourself coming back, up, 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 and back into full waking consciousness. 1, 2, 3, coming back, back, back. 4, and 5. And open your eyes. Maybe move a little bit. Wiggle your fingers and toes. And if you need more time right now, you can pause this recording and write more. Continue to write. But I'm going to go forward with the rest of our recording, and you can go back to this spirit journey and do it at your own, do it again or do it at your own pace later. Okay, this is entering into the energy of the priestess. The priestess archetype teaches us to see in our own way and to trust the way we see, each of us as individuals. So we're just looking at this spirit journey. What is the vision of the spirit journey? What did we see? What was the action that happened? How did it change? How did it move? What was going on? How did it end up maybe? What's the message of the vision and what's the teaching? And then you can ask, how is this related to the question you went in with? And how is this related to the card you drew as your guide card? Then record more about your journey in your journal. And as you write more down, more will come out. You will understand more about it the more you write. Okay, and then later what you can do is you can go back and look at this sequence, and you can go through all 4 doorways. You can do all 4 spirit journeys one at a time. So just repeat this at will and see where the journeys take you. Or use the method of the spirit journey for any question you have. And you can draw a card as your guide card and then do a journey about it. Ask for guidance, call the guidance in, and do this journey work. This is a big part of the work with tarot, or the work that I've done with tarot. So a big part of the way I've worked is through journeys, through the fool's journey or the hero's journey in terms of visionary consciousness. Okay, and now I want to return to the tale that I started with, and I want to tell you the end of the tale and what happened, because all this is contained in the tarot as well. Okay, here's how our tale ends, and this is our tale about Queen Mary. So Queen Mary returned to Scotland, and the evangelical Protestant preacher John Knox had come into power. Mary was Catholic, okay, and the Protestant movement was happening, protest movement. It was a protest movement against the queens, because every country of Europe had powerful queens, and they were all trained in the sight. They were like priestesses. They were trained in the sight. They had the vision. And John Knox, who was in Edinburgh, which Mary returned to, had already written in 1558. She got married in 1558, and he had written a book called First Blast of the Trumpet against the monstrous regimen of women. Okay, the women had to come down, and he was going to take them down. And I'm going to jump to the end and tell you he did take them down. These were the worst, most monstrous reigning women, and he specifically named Catherine de Medici, the Queen of France. She has to come down. Well, you know, she actually died. Marie of Guise, she was from France, and she was the Queen Regent of Scotland. She died too. A lot of the people actually began to die of other causes, but whoever hadn't died, he took them down. And I'm going to tell you how he did it a little bit. So Mary, Queen of Scots, so she went back to Edinburgh, and she was targeted as part of the monstrous regime. She was a monster. Okay, and he cast them and he framed them as witches. Mary Tudor, Queen of England, she was the mother of the woman who would become Queen Elizabeth, Princess Elizabeth, who was later the Queen of England, and she was targeted. So Princess Elizabeth, who was Mary Queen of Scots' cousin, she became Protestant, and I mean, she had to. The movement was of Northern Europe and the British Isles was all about become Protestant at this point in time. So this was all at the same time. It was all happening at the same time. And John Knox had some good points, but he was vicious. Okay, so I just want to say this from my own point of view. Like, they were trying to take down monarchy. They were trying to take down the divine right of kings. And any power that was associated with that. Well, you know, I'm going to tell you that I agree with some of that. However, I definitely agree with a lot of that. But in so doing, what they did was they named women as being responsible for all of it. So what they did was they took down women and witches. So that's what happened. It all happened in a very short period of time. So Knox wrote, he said, if you are defending this monstrous empire of women, if you so much as rise to defend any of these monstrous women, you are lifting your hand against God, and you are going to be punished by God. And he was fiery, evangelical, and he traveled all over. He traveled all around Europe with his message, and people listened, they heard his message, and men banded together to get rid of women in power, all women in power. Okay, so this is what happened. Okay. He said he was basing it on the Bible, and he said it went against God for women to rule. He wrote, and this is available, you can get this, to promote a woman to bear rule, superiority, dominion, or empire above any realm, nation, or city this is a quote, is A, repugnant to nature, contumely to God, and the subversion of good order, of all equity and justice. Okay, I'm partially bringing this up because right now we are in the middle of an election and we are still dealing with the fallout of John Knox, who is very present right now in our culture, even if you've never heard of him. His views and his ideas are very present right now. So he wrote, these are quotes from him, men illuminated only by the light of nature. You don't even have to have any education to get it. If you're just illuminated by your own nature, men illuminated only by the light of nature have seen and determined that it is a thing most repugnant to nature that women rule and govern over men. Any idiot can see that, is basically what he was saying. Woman in her greatest perfection was made to serve and obey man, not to rule and command him. After the fall, she was made subject to man by the irrevocable sentence of God. A and B, a dolor, anguish, and pain as oft as ever she shall be a mother. And then B, a subjection of herself, her appetites, and her will to her husband and his will. And so this is how women were going to be repressed, and it was biblical. It was out of the Bible, and you couldn't argue with it. So then what happens is Mary's going to become executed because she's too powerful. Queen Elizabeth is going to execute her cousin, her own cousin. Now, I think a lot of you know this story already. But so Queen Elizabeth was able to stay alive because she presented herself as an asexual human being. And Mary was known as a sexual woman. She was married 3 times and she had a child, which made her a sexual human being and therefore worthy of persecution. And Queen Elizabeth called herself her own self. She was very clever, and she figured out an archetype that would work for her so she could stay in power, and she called herself the Virgin Queen. So she was leaving Catholicism behind, and she herself became the Virgin, and she became the Virgin Queen, and it was a different archetype. Okay, she was going along with John Knox. She went along with John Knox. Okay, so Queen Mary, the sexual woman and the lover, so she was always known as the lover. She married twice again in Scotland. She bore the child James, only one child, and James would later become King of Scotland, England, and Ireland. So, and then John Knox relentlessly pursued Mary, and one of the only ways she could get away from him and out of his sight was to cross-dress, as we call it now. They didn't call it cross-dressing or anything like that. They just did it. So she dressed as a man so she could move around. She feared for her life. And then eventually she knew she was in such dire straits that she fled to England seeking the protection of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth, who they called each other sisters. And she really believed that Queen Elizabeth would help her. And Elizabeth was so unclear about what to do. This all happened so fast, she didn't know what to do. So she imprisoned her sister for 19 years. So Mary spent the last 19 years of her life imprisoned by Elizabeth and never believed that her sister could imprison her like that. And there were a couple of escape attempts and, everybody was killed, but whatever, who helped her try to escape. So in the end, Elizabeth, against her own will, she did not want to do this, but she ordered Mary's execution. She had no choice politically. then, so 1587, Mary's last words to the executioners were, I forgive you with all my heart, for now you shall make an end of all my troubles. Okay, then after she was beheaded, her little dog ran out from under her clothes, and her little dog wouldn't leave her. Okay, so there's the dog and the fool. So here's Mary going through all of this stuff like a fool, and then here's her little dog running out. And then her son, what happened with her son? So he became the king of Scotland, England, and Ireland. He actually became the king at 13 months old. And he was separated from his mother, Mary. He did not grow up with her. He grew up with the regents. And the regents are the people who control the king. You know, it's like the king's people. He was the one who authored the King James Bible, which is very beautiful, very beautifully written, and in which cartomancy and astrology are demonized, among other things. Okay, so cartomancy is tarot cards, and astrology and any other forms like that were demonized in the King James Bible, meaning anybody who's practicing that is a sorcerer or a witch. So he increased the demonization and persecution of witches, and mostly the witches were outspoken, powerful, land-holding women. So you probably know that story already. So this is how they confiscated all the women's land. He also wrote the book Demonology. You can get this book. Here's the book. If I should have put a picture of the book in, but anyway, Demonology. Okay, so he wrote Demonology, which actually outlined what a sorcerer is, what a witch is, what a wizard is. And he outlined it very specifically. And the reason that he did that was so his excuse me, there goes my voice. So his logic would hold up in court. They did have courts, but there wasn't a lot of, if you were accused as a witch, you didn't really have a lot of recourse. He wrote this book, Demonology, when he was 30 years old. He was the king. He was 30 years old. It was 1597. And in the book he wrote, for example, that if somebody worships the, quote, spirits of fire, of water, of air, or of earth, they're sorcerers, they're witches. Okay, so anybody who's connected with any of those ancient rituals, those shamanic indigenous rituals, which everyone throughout the world was connected with. Okay, I mean, this is shamanism the world over. Okay, but anybody connected with fire, water, air, and earth specifically, that is witchcraft and demonology. Anybody connected with magic tricks like a magician, cards, dice, anything like that, sorcerer, magician. He felt that the witches were extremely dangerous. And boy, my voice is really going on this. This is when it happened. I'm telling you all right now, this is exactly when it happened. John Knox, King James. He called his own mother a witch. They were all witches and they needed to be gotten rid of. So he published that book in 1597. So now this is a little autobiographical for me. If Queen Mary, if she were my grandmother, he'd be my grandfather because he's her son. And she only had one son. Okay, so if that's true, I've got it all inside me. I've got Queen Mary and Queen James with maybe not a direct line, let's say, to Queen Elizabeth, her cousin, but I feel all those energies inside me. Okay, 1597, demonology. Well, on the other side of my family, which is my dad's family, my father, that's my mother's family, that's the Mary Queen of Scots. On the other side, The earliest known, my name is Eakins. It's actually pronounced Eakins technically, and or Aiken. Okay, this is my earliest known female ancestor, Bessie Aiken of Edinburgh, 1597, when James wrote that book, Demonology. Well, in 1597, there was a huge witch sweep, a sweep. They called them sweeps. They swept Edinburgh of the witches, and they were the people, they were healers, and they were also using the sight and the insight to know things. Okay, so this is what they were trying to get rid of. And so they arrested and killed a lot of witches. 1597 was a huge sweep. I think it was 200 people or something like that, including my earliest known ancestor, Bessie Aiken. The only way that women were in the historical record at the time is if they were witches or queens, basically. And so she was arrested and she was condemned to death. Almost all of the witches were killed, and they confiscated the witches' land. My ancestor here, Bessie Aiken, she was accused of being what was called a white witch, and a white witch was a healer. So that became illegal too, because the healing went to the men, not the women. The women had always been the healers and the traditional healers. But so that went into the realm of men. So I'm expressing this to you right now, even though this is a much larger history than just the tarot cards. The tarot cards are very much contained in this history. The tarot cards become illegal, but the tarot cards were a way for people to know things and to know themselves. Okay, but then later, if you got caught with a tarot card or an images like that, you could be killed for that. So that's where it got its bad connection, where that came from. And it's right from this exact period of history. So I do want to tell you that, okay, someone who is part of this class but is on leave right now, actually, who has connections to large databases, actually, this is an aside, actually got me the trial records from Bessie Aiken. I have them. And so, on what she was condemned for and the healing, she was healing her neighbors. That's why she was arrested. She was one of the very few who got away. And the way she got away was because she was pregnant or got pregnant as she was, confined. And because she was pregnant, they sent her into exile and banished her instead of killing her. And what happened to her, I don't know. I've tried to find out, but I got a lot of emotion around this, but it's taken my voice right away. Okay, so Bessie Aiken condemned to death by King James. So she was definitely my ancestor. Maybe he was my ancestor. Anyway, we all have all this inside of us, and it can happen fast. It can happen in one generation where things get turned around. So this is me. Here's me. Everything is, was, and shall be inside of me. So what will I do with that? And then this is the Earth Sister. My mom painted this card in Tarot of the Spirit, and that was a spirit portrait or a soul portrait of me, the Earth Sister card. So that was her tribute to me. And, so I feel all of this is in me. I've come back to the tarot somehow. I wound up creating a tarot deck, and it's very much a part of my life. It's a really big part of my life. And knowing this whole history and how are we going to work with it and how are we going to move the energies within. So that's all part of my fate. So what is my fate? What is my fate here? And I think this applies to so many of us, to know the past, present, and future, to understand that wheel, how it works, to increase intuitive understanding, to understand the evolution of the cycles, to expand the possibilities. That is probably the most important part for me. It's not this or that. It's not men or women, or men over women, or women over men, or whatever, or any of that, but to expand the possibilities, all the possibilities in all the ways, to be inspired, to become, to determine my own fate as much as possible within extenuating circumstances, because sometimes we don't have a lot of control over our fate, but we can shapeshift to some extent. And to learn how to stay centered, this is the biggest lesson of all, to learn how to stay centered in the middle of the wheel, no matter what is happening. And in the Tarot of the Spirit, here, what we see, this is the Tarot of the Spirit card for the Wheel of Fortune, that we both hold our fate in our own hand. So we determine that. At the same time, there are mysterious forces that we don't understand, either external mysterious forces that guide and change things, or we can be subject to extenuating circumstances that we have no control over. So what are we going to do inside that energy? That's a big question for us. And then as I was creating this slideshow, I had this dream. And so I decided to include my dream. I was in a play in the dream, and it was a high honor to be in this play. Like it was really a good thing. All actors were required to show up in costume at the first meeting. So we were going to have a meeting, but we didn't even know what the play was yet. But we had to dress for a formal dinner. And it was like, what do you wear to a formal dinner? And are we having dinner together? Is that it? And so I went into this closet that contained my grandmother's dresses. That was Levantia. And there were some dresses in there from the 40s and 50s or whatever. And I looked at some possible dresses. And then, because I had on jeans in my dream, I was wearing jeans. So I look at these dresses and I think, oh, what should I wear? I don't know. What is a formal dinner? I don't know how to draw. I don't even know how to do this. So then I returned to the closet. But when I got back there, the closet was sort of off stage. All the other actors they'd been into that closet too. So they took all the dresses that were sparkly and interesting and very, beautiful or whatever. And they were rose pink. Okay. And then there was one ugly green dress left. And it was a horrible looking dress. It was way too big and way too short. And so I thought, oh, I don't want to wear that. So I'll just go to the mall and get something. So then I go to the mall, I'm looking at shoes, and then I remember what my role is while I was looking at shoes. Oh, I know who I am. I'm an initiator in the ancient lodge. That's who I am. I'm the high priestess of the temple. Remember? So that was the dream. You're the high priestess of the temple. Dress accordingly. And then I remembered this picture. This is a picture taken of me dressed, as a priestess. And in the picture, I have on my fool shoes. So, okay, my fool shoes, you don't really know what you're doing, but you're going to go for it. And I've got the scepter. And if I had known any of this stuff I'm talking about today, I probably would have had an orb in my other hand, maybe a crystal ball or something. But anyway, so here it is, and here's how we play out our lives. And here am I wearing fool shoes. And by the way, that outfit I was wearing there was green. And in my dream, I didn't want it. I didn't want that. But I was forced to remember, oh, yeah, okay, take the role, claim it. All this to bring up what is your dream. Because this is about your dream. And that's why I'm sharing all of this. Everything this path that I'm walking with you, we're walking this path together. And it's because I want your dream to emerge. I want our dreams to emerge. And I want us to walk this path together, expand the possibilities, and see a greater vision. So that's the end for today. And you can come back, go back into this, go back into the middle, do that, the spirit journey again and again. This is like your classic Vision Quest journey for all time. Okay. Thank you very much. Again, everybody, thank you for being with me. Thank you for participating. And if you want to get more information, go into Tarot of the Spirit, Kabbalah, and Tarot of the Spirit. All right. And my heart is with you. And we will just continue to learn, to know, and to go forward. Okay. So bless, bless, bless. Thank you so much.